Hello there! So the community is currently fascinated with pushing the limits of difficulty. The loved category, built on maps literally loved by the community, consists of entirely challenging maps. The ranked category has seen something similar recently, with almost every 7-star map being ranked in the last 2 years. There is a difference between most of these maps in loved versus ranked though. Ranked maps have to actually adhere to quality standards, and that's not an easy thing to do for maps this challenging. So what does it take to make a good map as difficult as these? The answer I hear from most people would have to be a mapper's ability to play Osu. Someone skilled at the game has first-hand experience feeling what makes difficult maps good and bad, and should therefore be able to transfer that skill over to the editor. If we look at some mappers famous for their difficult maps, that answer seems correct. Mazarin has quite a few ranked maps above 7 stars, and he created the hardest ranked map in the game. His difficulty in mapping also reflects his playing ability. His best performance is a 400 PP score, so he clearly has shown that he has some playing skill. Ekaro has one of the most popular ranked 7-star maps in the game, as well as a long history of creating difficult maps. He may not have any highly ranked performances, but he's skilled at the game in ways that just aren't even human, so he's got some playing skill too, for sure. But what about someone like Kite? He ranked one of the most popular 7-star maps of the year. If we look at his playing accomplishments, he's got nothing. And what about someone like Jonathan LFJ? He actually ranked a 7-star map this year too. Same with KTGster, Milan, Alacat, and a bunch of other mappers too. None of these guys are really good at Osu, yet they've ranked some of the hardest maps in the game. Based on what I've seen, I think playing skill isn't necessary for creating hard maps or judging intense playability. In fact, someone's technical ability at the game can actually mislead mappers in some situations. One of the hardest parts of mapping is understanding movement. It's a part of mapping heavily reliant on knowing the difference between comfortable and uncomfortable hand motions, something that sounds like nonsense but is usually agreed upon. For experienced mappers, movement can be understood visually through analysis of how objects are laid out. But for newer mappers, that isn't so much the case. Newer mappers aren't really good at making this connection yet, so they rely on feeling to determine comfort. The problem here is that skilled players are just too good at the game. Think about it. The best players are good because they're able to consistently perform well on a large number of maps. This means being efficient at as many different types of movement as possible. By practicing movement in so many different ways, the line between comfortable and uncomfortable movement becomes blurred. Everything ends up being playable because that's a requirement for being good at the game. In mapping though, this means skilled players ineffectively use different types of movement since they can't really tell any differences between them. Now, that isn't to say that unskilled players are going to be better at determining playability though. They may be able to tell the difference between certain things being comfortable and uncomfortable, but really, every player is different. Some players are slightly better at the game and will have more types of movement within their comfort zone, while other players are worse and will find far more types of movement uncomfortable. This means relying on feeling is not very effective. Learning about different types of movement is necessary for all types of players. By getting feedback from other mappers and modders, as well as testing different things on their own, all types of mappers eventually learn concepts behind movement. I know it's not the best way to learn mapping, and because of that, it doesn't always go too well. There's one thing I see especially low-level players do during this process that I find really bad: overvaluing feedback from highly skilled players. Don't misinterpret me here. Seeing how a really good player sight reads a map is valuable information, along with their opinion afterwards. What's bad is using a skilled player's opinion as a defining factor for map playability or quality. If players think a map plays well, that's great, but it's not a reason to nullify any suggestions for gameplay changes in a map. Mappers need more logic to justify their choices than the opinions of highly ranked players. This is especially a problem because of how players usually react to maps. For example, look at this map. I designed this map to play poorly, but that doesn't mean it's bad. It uses a concept of movement that people aren't really accustomed to and relates that to the music, meaning to me, it's good. If a top player says a map's good, what do they really mean? Are they thinking about movement in relation to the song, or as a separate standalone element? A map that plays well isn't always going to be good, so it's an important distinction to make. Even with that in mind, it's hard to know what a player is evaluating when saying a map plays well or not, since they all rely on their own individual playing ability, rather than any mapping knowledge. So anyway, going back to all the guys who ranked 7-star maps earlier, what do they have in common? maybe a desire to be famous, but more importantly, an understanding of mapping concepts. Experience through playing is useful and can make understanding some concepts easier, but is by no means a necessity. Anyone can make the next super hype 9-star map, regardless of their playing skill.